Okay, so the plan is I'm going to put a toggle switch in here, kind of like so. Let me see if I can get a better angle for you guys. So the plan is to put the toggle switch in kind of just like that. I know it keeps falling here, annoyingly. To get it in and somehow get it to stay and put a toggle switch in there, so it kind of look a bit like that. Weird, pointless, I know, but this is just a fun little project that I'm trying to do at the moment. The original switch was broken, so it's either replace it with a new one, which cost about £10, or try and do something fun, something different. So obviously I opted for the something fun, something different, which also happens to be a bit cheaper. So done a bit of research. The smallest toggle switch that I could find is this one here. It was, I think, £1.99 from eBay. There are smaller ones. This is a sub miniature. Ideally, I wanted ultra miniature because of the space you have here available. I think that's a face. Amazing. Because of the space you have here. Now, I don't mind it sticking out a little bit from the shell. I just didn't want it to be out here, because then you've got a situation where there's a lot of pressure that can twist it. So if it sits further back in and the shell helps to clamp it down, that's going to give it a lot more structural rigidity and try and give it a bit more longevity. This isn't going to be a solid solution, but it's just something fun to try and do. I've got this rigged up before with some wires. I just hooked up some crocodile clips, connected some wires to here and soldered them onto the right pads, and it works. It's just a switch that opens and closes a circuit. Now, this isn't the best one to use. This is an SPST. What you really ought to use is an SPDT, which I think is single pole, single throw, and SPDT is single pole, double throw. The single pole double throw SPDT would have a third leg here, which could be used for ground. But this is literally going to be a break in the circuit. So what I'm going to have to do, and this isn't going to come as a nice suggestion to people watching this. I'll put up a picture as well. I'm going to have to cut out a small notch here so that this can sit as far in as possible. Once I've got it in, I'm going to solder positive to the first pad and negative to the second pad. That's from some testing I did. That seems to work. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. But obviously the biggest issue I have found has been the physical ability to fit this in. So that's what I'm going to be working on first. I don't want to trim the shell, even though the shell is cheaper and more easily replaced than the board. However, I'm picking these up relatively cheap enough that I'm willing to give this a go. So I have a file. I don't have a Dremel, again. It's a tool that is expensive and I need to save up for. So for now, I'm going to use a file, and this is probably going to take about half an hour. So I won't catch it all on video, but this seems to be quite a nice width actually for those two prongs. Yep. And I'm going to go ahead and file a bit of a slit here. Okay, so I've got a little notch cut out where the switch used to be, and it's given me a bit more breathing room for when I put in the toggle switch. So when it sits in here, these posts can sit a little bit more in the shell. And what I'm going to do is probably put a little bit of Kapton tape just on the edge, because there's a layer of copper trace that I've exposed, and obviously I don't want it touching any of these and causing a short circuit or just causing any kind of contact. So the final thing I will do before all this is done is put a bit of Kapton tape just there to keep it protected and insulated from the switch. What I have also done as well is I've had to cut away here so that when this sits in, it matches the thickness. I know it's going to be quite hard to see, but when the device is put together, when the two shells or the two halves of the shells are put together, what I wanted it to do is to hold this as tight as possible, the switch that is. What I'm probably going to do is put a bit of hot glue in so that it gives it a bit more of a grip. But as you can see, it needed that extra, what, 3 or 4 mil, just so that then the shell could close quite nicely. Obviously I haven't got the bumper on, but I can see here the gap there is pretty much flush. So this is kind of what it would look like, obviously missing a few buttons. This is as far as it'll stick out really, and I'm kind of happy with that. And if I give it just a little bit of a, even me holding the shell together gives it enough pinching power to hold that in place. That isn't what I'm going to rely on. Like I said, I'm going to put a bit of hot glue on the top shell to hold it in place, because whenever I would need to take it apart, obviously the back plate comes off and that would be stuck down there. Obviously if I wanted to remove it, I just have to, I don't know, take the board out, desolder it, and then just get something that would get rid of the hot glue. So next thing to do, like I said, is to hot glue that in, and then I'm just going to put the smallest amount of wire just to bridge the connections so that the switch would then work. So I've got the shell where I want it to be. I think next I'm going to hot glue that in place, but before I do that I will put I'll connect some wires to this and give the wires a bit of length so that I could then just bend it round and hook it. I'm probably going to do maybe a centimetre and a half to 2 centimetres of wire, so that there's enough to play with when obviously I'm trying to hold it in place and solder it. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so we all know how hot glue goes. I've got it in. It's a bit messy, but fiddly things like this always end up being real messy. I've got too much length on this wire, but I don't really feel like there's any point in trimming these just to make it neater. So what I'll probably do is do something like wrap this round or just solder it down and then try and just put it flush. So I'm going to get some solder just to tin the edges of these wires. And then I'm just going to get a bit of flux just to make it easier for on these pads. Okay, so I'm going on the, if you look at it from top down, the first and the second pad are the ones that are going to get soldered. The positive is going to go to the first pad and the negative is going to go to the second pad. That way it completes a circuit for the rest of the board. So let's get some tweezers rather than use my fingers up close where these, I'll put these crappy tweezers somewhere, there they are, all cheap ones. So let's get this, in fact, let me get this wire kind of bent into place so it's ready, or at least halfway there. Let's go ahead and try and get this to behave, I suppose is the best word, just behave. So again, I'm going to try and get this in shot, but if my head goes in the way, I apologise. I'm just trying to get closer to it so I can see exactly what I'm doing. as I don't want to fuck anything up. Okay, let's do the second one. Not liking that second one as much, so I'm going to bring it down. Press it down. What it might have done, and I'm worried this has happened, is it's lifting the pad, which could ruin everything, but we'll keep trying. I think it has lifted the pad, so I'm going to have to be very careful with this. Right, I think that's made connection there. Although the use of the word think isn't always encouraging. I'm going to stick a screw in, hold the board in place. Again, this is dirty. This is really dirty soldering work and whatever. But hey, it's just to see if I could do it, as opposed to anything else. I've got the board screwed back into place. Now we can put the bumpers back in. Just make sure these are the right way. Yeah. I knew this was going to be a difficult task when I kind of set out to do it, purely because finding something that small that's got the resistance a toggle switch has is quite difficult. This thing's got to be beefy enough to withstand, because it's quite a I don't know what you would call it. It's quite a beefy click, so to speak, and so you need that physical size to be of a decent resistance to the pressing. So shells all back together nicely. Get this lined up so I can then put the screw in, if it would be so kind. There we go. So let's turn my Sony line off. Let's get the tri-wing screws all back in. So I'm going to go top left, just kind of finger tight, and then I'm going to come bottom right here, finger tight again, and just slowly bring the whole of the shell down in one go, just because there's a few components probably sitting a bit higher. I say components, I mean the switch itself sits a bit higher than I wanted it to, especially with the hot glue being a bit of a pain that it is. This one's a hard one to get in, but there's nothing over this side. And then finally top right. Yeah, top right. Have we got one in there? Yeah, we do. Top right, sorry, these are middles. Any more? One more. Do it again. Right, so tighten that one up. I can tighten that one up. And just slowly tighten these down. You don't want to go too hard because it is just screwed into plastic, so you can twist and twist, and the metal screws will turn, but they'll start to chew up the plastic. Oh, one more. Always forget. Switch over to the Phillips, and the final screw for in the battery compartment, just down here. Okay, I don't want to put that too tight because this bit can be over tightened and crack and snap right obviously on the screw post, so that's pointless over tightening that one. Let's put some batteries in, get the cover, and let's turn it on. There we go, a toggle switch on-off button for the Game Boy Advance. It doesn't look great. It's got no kind of style to it. It's probably got its own unique style, bodge job, but I like it. I like the response you get back from pressing it. And it was just something fun to figure out and do research online. Again, a lot of help from the Gameboy Discord. Link will be in the description. I highly recommend that you sign up to the Discord. Everyone there is extremely knowledgeable. So I've had a number of folk on there help me with this kind of thing, all the way from what type of switch to whether taking that little notch out the board was possible. So yeah, any Game Boy related help or advice that you want, you'll be able to find on the Discord. So go ahead, join, links in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, please do, put a comment, like. I don't like asking for it because it's just very cliche in this day and age, but 1 or 2 videos, I think I'll be a bit of a cheeky beggar and ask for one. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.